All right, welcome, Art. My pleasure to have you here. I appreciate you taking time at such an odd hour from Italy all the way to answer some questions for me. This is just a conversation. You and I have chatted before. We've had a great time, and even though we start out at having like casual conversations, they contain so much amazing information that I figured let's have another one and record it for people in my audience and your audience that can learn from us.
Sure. And thank you very much for having me, Bhaskar. It's a pleasure and an honor. I consider you one of the biggest in the space. I always follow you, and well, it's nice to be here.
I appreciate that. You're far too kind, Art. Thank you. I'm getting started just like you are, but given what you're doing, I might be way behind. You might be leaving us all way behind given what you've got going on. So why don't you give us a quick 30-second intro of who you are, your name, where you're located, what your investing niche is. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I am Arturo. Art is the short version, easier for the US people calling it that way. And I'm the owner of Diendei Land Investments. Of course, I'm a land flipper, and I am in the land space since spring, I would say March, April 2021. My niche is, I would say, mainly land flipping. We started with another company with a partner of mine, Emmanuel. We started also to work on a big entitlement deal that started a couple of years ago. We will start minor subdivision in 2025. But the core of my business, and in this case, it's just my company, is land flipping, rural vacant land. I don't do infill. They can happen, they can come into the pipeline, but is not my bread and butter. And I normally try to purchase the property, so straight purchase, and then sell the property. I would say 70% is straight purchased, 30% is double closing, and that's pretty much it.
Amazing. Very different niche. You and I are on the opposite ends. You do rural vacant land, and I do only infill. And
there is space for everyone.
Absolutely. So such an amazing field with opportunity for everybody to do different things, collaborate, do different things, compete. It's amazing. So tell me, you mentioned you're in Italy. Where exactly in Italy?
Okay, I am in Rome. I actually, you know that, and probably most of the people that is watching this or listening to this know that, but I am also an Italian Navy officer. So at this moment, today, I am doing this. I mean, it's hard for me to say side gig because actually it takes most of my time in the 24 hours. Right. But as a matter of fact, I have a day job, like what you call a W-2 in Italy is not called that way, of course. But I am a Navy officer during the day, and I work in inland since I come home until whenever I need to work. And I'm in Rome. I've been living, because of my military job, in many places around the world. The last place that I was living in was Turkey, where I've been living in Turkey. I lived in Turkey between 2017 and 2021. And that was the period of time where I found this niche.
Very, very cool. And you're living the dream. From some American investors' perspective, you're already doing what a lot of us hope to achieve as an end result. A lot of us, we want to live in Europe somewhere. We want to do land remotely. We want to have an operation that generates money and allows us to like travel and see the world. Well, guess what? You're starting that way. And what does your end goal look like?
Well, I would say my end goal, I have, of course, a financial end goal, even if, this is actually, I heard this in a podcast, Matthew McConaughey.
Yes.
So he went to a podcast, I don't remember with whom, but essentially the Steve Bartlett, with Steve Bartlett. But essentially, he said, when even if I have a number in mind, and we're talking just about financial now, then there are other kind of end goals. Even if I have a number in mind, it's just arriving there. It's like to arrive at the top of a mountain. And then once that you are at the top, you always look at a mountain that is even higher.
Further.
And then that becomes your end goal. So yeah, I have a number in mind, but that is not what really drives me.
Okay.
It's more like I just like the game. I just like the feeling, and I found myself like a kind of entrepreneur, even if I smile when I say that. Just late in my travel in life, because I was like 3 years ago. I'm 50 now, so I was 47, and then I found out that, and better later than ever. But yeah, it's something that really is just the commitment, the work, the community, also the things that really fires me up. The satisfaction of having something that is all mine, that I have built myself, and that works well. That is one of the biggest. I mean, it really fulfilled me, and I think it's also a good thing for my. I have a son, of course. I don't want to be like I'm an example for you, but I hope that this can teach him to, you can.
It's a given.
More
You're
or less
inspiring.
whatever you want. You
Inspiring
just have
all
to
of
work.
us, man. You're inspiring. So your son has to be inspired. There's no question about it. And I hear you talk, man. And honestly, like, I apologize for just cutting you short there. I just couldn't contain myself. You're describing essentially myself too. I could connect. I could relate. I'm 41. I started in 2021 as well. I also had a W-2, but there's been nothing more fulfilling and fun, and watching us build something that is producing results, that has a community around it. It's very interesting. You're basically describing the feelings that I have. It's amazing. That's very, very cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna dive into some rapid fire questions here, because you and I can talk for hours, man. I think you and I can probably drink some beers or drink some coffee, and we could probably talk for hours, and it would be an amazing conversation. We could probably build a whole business in a few hours, just you and I sitting down. But I'm gonna give people an opportunity to learn from you in a very quick format, because there's a lot of people that have very specific questions, and I've made a list of these questions after questions that I asked by a lot of people that have seen me build my business. So let's dive right into it. Okay, I'm gonna start with just some general strategy. So, what inspired you to invest in land in general, but also what inspired you to invest in land in the US? Why not invest elsewhere in the world?
Okay. So more than inspiration, it was about opportunity. I've always been into real estate. I've been lucky enough, because my grandfather and my father, they had other jobs, but they liked real estate. So I have some real estate in Italy with my brother that we rent. Something we are actually currently selling in this period of these days. With the last week, before Christmas, we sold a couple of apartments. But yeah, they have some rental. So the real estate bug has always been something inside of me, like my father or my grandfather. But there is a thing in Italy, because I do it. Italy is one of the most beautiful places, and from someone who has lived in many places around the world, I can tell you it's one of the most beautiful places to visit. Is not the best place to live, in my opinion. It's pretty good, but not the best. For sure, it's not the best to invest in real estate for many reasons, and we can discuss it all
another time. Yes.
So I was looking for investment opportunity in real estate where I could operate from abroad. And I started to, get curious about bigger pockets, and so started to look at that. And I started to read some books from Brandon Turner and all this kind of stuff. I was more and more fascinated. And actually, I started also to run some tax liens, tax deeds auctions. My partner, he is a big name of tax liens, tax deeds from Italy. He has courses and all this kind of stuff, and he's very good at that. But those did not resonate with me, besides the crazy competition, and it didn't resonate with me. And at that time, because of the weird algorithm of YouTube, I was proposed a video from Seth Williams, which is the land flipping land cycle. I suggest all those that are, do I start or not, just to go there and have a look. It's 20 minutes video. And that made me decide, open my eye and said, that is the form of real estate that I can do from abroad, no termites, no tenants, no toilets.
Right.
And everything can be done from abroad. I mean, you are living in Texas and investing mainly in Texas, for what I understand. But a lot of us in the space, they live in Florida and they invest in Arkansas. They live in California and they invest in Tennessee.
Right.
So there is no real big difference. There is some difference, but there are no real big difference from someone being in Florida and investing in Arkansas, from someone being in Italy and investing wherever in the US.
Very
So
cool.
that opened my eyes and said, this is what I want to be in. And then I contacted Seth, started his masterclass, which is a very good course. I have no affiliation with him, but just I'm a friend of Seth, and I suggest him as a great person. And then the rest is history.
That's very good to know. My first deal was also remote. I happened to just do it on accident, as just taking a chance on it. It worked. It took a long time. It was a very small deal. There was not a whole lot of risk. But I'm in Texas because this is my backyard, and I understand this market better than I understand any other market. And I'm less of a risk taker than many other people are, especially compared to you when you're not even here in the States. At least local people can drive to or fly to a land parcel.
Yeah.
You're halfway across the world. So you really have to know what you're doing, or have to have so much faith so you don't lose money. Okay. How did you choose which markets? Now that you know you're investing in another country, give me a very quick rundown of how do you pick your market?
Okay, so to pick my market, I essentially now I use a software, but the software is landing sites. You know that at the moment that there are these the last two new tools in the game are the land portal from the Upkeep brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and the landing sites from the Land Investing Accelerator and Sumner Healy Group.
Mm-hmm.
So I use landing sites. I'm happy of that product. It just came out in November
Land
for
insights.
as added the data platform. Actually, the market research was way back in time, like 1 year and a half ago, probably. And it's being improving all the time. But essentially, that is just a tool. The parameters on which I base the selection of my market, and the landing sites just allow me to analyze the market faster, are essentially the sell-through rate, so the demand in 6 months, the last 6 months, 1 year, the top. The days on market, that for me are very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hold properties too long. This
Right.
is a mistake that I made in the past, and I didn't lose money, but it sucks when you think
Right.
you have a good property, you bought it, but you have to keep it for 1 year. It's not good. And also, actually, the physical features of the county. I normally target counties, so my markets are counties.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because the form of marketing that I use is mainly direct mail blind offers, meaning that I have to make an offer. There is an offer on my letter,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have to price the county. And if there are like Tennessee, for example, the western part of Tennessee is super mountainous and super steep, and then there is some part that is not, or places where there are big towns that are in the middle of the county. So all these physical features may affect the homogeneity of the pricing of the price per acre, and that would make more difficult to price a county. Of
Right.
course, this is not the first factor that are in
Right.
order: sell-through rate, days on market, and physical features, but it's still an aspect that I take into account when I decide my markets.
So just so I can reiterate for anyone that might watch this later, the sell-through rate is essentially a ratio between what has sold and what's currently available on market.
Yeah,
And you go back 6 months to see the sold activity. And
yeah.
then days on market, of course, what's the maximum days on market, or what average days on market do you look for?
Normally, everything that is more, if I see, there are two ways that I check the days on market. One is landing sites, but once that I decided the county according to the sell-through rate, I like to go on Redfin or Zillow, and take most of the sold comps and see how long did it take to sell, and see also what is listed and see how long it has been listed. And up until 6 months, 6 months is already a lot of time for me,
Got it.
but it's still acceptable.
Understood. So no more than 6 months. Anything under six
No,
months is a good sign.
yeah. If
And
I see that everything is like, for example, I was analyzing a market as Monroe County in Pennsylvania, and I mean it's pretty easy to price, but everything is being sold like 8 months, 9 months. If you go on Redfin, you see that thing, and so I don't think that is a market where I want to play.
understood. You want quicker turn because you're
Yeah.
paying and closing on these properties yourself. These aren't wholesale deals. So you want your money not to be stuck in these deals for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, velocity of money is
Very
important.
important.
And I reinvest everything into my company because I live in Italy with the money from my military job. So I want it to go back into my company as fast as possible to,
Understood.
increase my acquisition budget, to increase my marketing, and so on and so forth.
Excellent. And I also want to reiterate the physical characteristics, like you said, is very important because you want to create some sort of standardization between the type of
Yeah,
properties you
yeah,
buy so that it's easier to price every time and there's a lot less guesswork based upon
yes,
characteristics, who might buy it, how long it might sit. And that's why I like infill art, because infill operates within a very simple set of parameters. If you check for a few things and they are there, utilities, access, no flood zone, shape, frontage, we buy it and we'll likely sell it. Of course, the
yeah,
price has to be a very important factor as well, but I like that. Compared to, like you said, West Tennessee, mountainous, it could vary so much that some properties might have a better view but may not be buildable. Some might be buildable but may not have great access. So having
yeah.
uniformity on your physical characteristics is a great criteria to go after. Awesome. So
It's you can still decide if there is like an area in a market that where there is this physical feature that may affect the price. We're talking about price when pricing the list, okay? May affect the price. Then you can still decide to exclude the area and just pull the properties into the area that is not affected by this physical feature. This is another thing that we can do. I normally try to work in counties that are easy to price, essentially.
understood. Yep. And a follow-up question for you: when it comes to pricing, you're sending out blind offers, meaning you have to have a good understanding of what the market value is so you can offer a percentage of that market value, correct?
Yes.
How are you pricing these properties? How do you know what the values are?
Well, that is a very, very demanding job. It's the thing that up until a few months ago, I would say 2, 3 months ago, was taking most of my time. That's why I took a person to replace me. I trained him, and he's doing a quite decent job. It's learning still, but pretty close to the same way that I think. So what I do essentially is I go on Redfin or on Zillow. Redfin doesn't allow you to download every state. So there are, for example, Pennsylvania, you cannot download on Redfin. So I download the comps that sold in the last year, and I put them in a spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet is linked to a table, essentially, that I have in the same spreadsheet. And in this spreadsheet, there is also the link. There is the price per acre of the property, the address, the acreage, the price and the price per acre, and the column that is note column, and then the link to the Redfin URL. And so my VA before me is going property by property for all the sold. So I don't check just the 3 and take the price. I go through all of them, take notes in the column, scrub out those that are not suitable comps, and then identify acreage interval where the price is more homogeneous. And then in this price interval, I find the median in that price interval. The reason why I take the median is just because it automatically takes out all the outliers.
Right.
And I apply that median price into the list that I downloaded from the data provider. And once that I've done that, I double check before I send to the mail house, and I see what if this person calls me, and then I simulate, I kind of rehearsal, and I go there and I see, okay, my price is on spot. And if I see that, you know, I do it 4 or 5 times, and 4 or 5 times I completely off, probably I have to do it again.
Very
and then generally it doesn't happen, but yeah, it can happen, and that's why it's important to have, you know, quite homogeneous county. Otherwise, it becomes difficult.
So Art, you just gave away a secret to a lot of people here, okay? Which is very amazing because, you know, people tend to hold and hog information, and it's amazing that you're willing to share. Also, sharing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to just simply end up creating competition, because what you're applying, the way you're applying, isn't easily replicable. Isn't somebody can just say, okay, I'm going to start doing it the way you're doing it. But I have something interesting to share. The methodology that you're using essentially is the methodology that gets used by pretty much every software out there that does average pricing for land in different size buckets. I was going to suggest you might look into getting some sort of simple software written, customized for you, where you just enter the data and it splits out properties into different buckets, finds the median values for you, and then automatically when you enter the prospective properties into that software, gives you the market value based upon the comps that you entered in there. That's what we're using. We wrote something for ourselves, but something I may suggest might significantly reduce the time. And I have some resources available that I can share with you afterwards.
Man,
if you wanted to
if you have, that would be awesome. I mean, everything that will make it easier. Oh, excellent. Thank you very much.
I would have suggested my software was written by my wife, but she doesn't even have time for my own business. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to allow her to be able to write for somebody else. But I do know quite a few other developers that can easily write something for you. So I'll get you in touch with some people. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. You basically described your strategies for finding undervalued land, so I'm not going to waste our time just reiterating that question. How do you qualify a land parcel without being on site?
Well, we were talking before about the fact that I am out and you are local, and so you know the market and I don't. So in my business model, I make a big use of course, title companies or attorneys and land agents. So unless it's a double close, and for double close, because it's more difficult with double closing to find an agent that is, you know, willing to help you even if you don't own the property. But when I do like that case, I normally let's say take the risk in a way. So I try to have someone going there and have a look at the property, take pictures, and, you know, report me before I commit. So the drone pilot gives me a report and all this kind of stuff. I try to run a thorough due diligence with the county. But other than the double closing, all the other cases, I always try to use a land agent, a physical broker, and normally of course, is you know, everyone here, they know how to use it, in the sense I ask the possibility to use his help to determine the opinion of that, to have his opinion of value, being local and knowing the market, and then I will use him on the disposition side and paying whatever commission. I'm willing to pay up to, you know, 10%, even more. Never happened more than 10%, but 10% is a price that for me is very reasonable in exchange of the amount of information and local knowledge that comes from a land agent.
That's amazing.
For example, in Pennsylvania, guys saved me from a very bad deal. Actually, I was working on this deal with a funding partner. And then it came out, we were using a land agent from Whitetail Properties. I work with them most of the time. They are great in the areas where I work. And there was this crazy regulation about septics. So a pass per test was not enough to have a septic. You had to get, for all the parcels that had been created after 1974, you had to get a lot of more stuff along with the septic, so it didn't make sense number-wise, so we let it go. But if I bought the property, I would have been like in a big trouble. So this is just an example.
So you rely on the expertise of local agents that know land. Has it been a challenge finding agents that actually are informed about land?
Well, I have most of the time when I work in the market, I always try to see if whitetail serve the market, whitetail properties, and then I can refer to the new agent that I talk to whitetail properties in the new market. I say, hey, you can talk with Craig or Wyatt or whoever of the other guys that I work with. Whitetail properties, they know each other, even if they work in different states or different markets. And normally they, okay, cool, I'm happy with that. And whitetail properties, normally they work very well. I never had any problem, never with them. And if there is not whitetail properties working there, then I just vet land agents. So I check on Zillow, Redfin, I see the pictures, I see the listing, I see the name of the broker also. If there is like land or forestry or whatever, that is a good symptom. And then I call them, and normally 3-4 calls, you find the one that looks like a good fit. And most of the time, I mean, I would say always, I never had any problem with them.
Understood. Very cool. And you said 10% of the sell price, or 10% of
the commission? The commission, it depends a lot on the type of property and on the projected profit. But for a smaller profit, let's say, is normally whitetail properties apply a 10%. The least that I paid with whitetail properties was, I think, 7 or 8%.
And is that of the sale price or is of your profit margin?
Of the sale price.
Wow, that is significant. We offer
it depends on. It depends on, it depends on what kind of properties you go after. If the properties that I target, normally the minimum profit that I need to put in my pocket after all the split with the funders, if I use any funder, is, I mean, what I aim at least is 20,000. Sometimes it's 15,000, sometimes it's 20,000, but that is the minimum. So that means that when I buy properties, I normally make an offer that is anywhere between 48 and 60%. So let's say 50%. It means that the property is 40,000 sale price, which means that I have to give 4,000 out of of the sale to the guy. But essentially, this allows me to not have a dispo side of my company, because my company is all focused in the acquisition. Disposition is all up to them and to the title company. So I work like, I would say 15%, 1/5, into the disposition, and the remaining 85% is just acquisition and transaction.
Man, this is so amazing. I love this. Your business is set up exactly opposite of my business. We are focused entirely on disposition. I got licensed because of that, and my team members are actively making connections with buyers. So we have a larger buyer pool, builder pool, developer pool, and we get deals sent to us from investors like you who know that we're heavy on the disposition side. 2025 is a big push for us to become sales agents known for dispo, known to have builders and buyers in our network. That's why this name came about, Builders Land Source, so that we can be a resource to builders, find them land. And guess what? You're great at finding land. If you have land and I have builders, we can work together.
I will, man. I never worked in Texas, but never say never.
Absolutely. And it's amazing. Like, it's so refreshing to hear that your entire strategy is nothing like mine. It's so different, and you're doing well. Thank God we're doing okay as well. And it's just so
Yeah.
amazing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the average land parcel size and characteristics you aim for?
Okay, so I normally, as I said at the beginning, I normally go after rural vacant land, which means that I pull properties from five. I was doing five no max in terms of acreage. I think that uh, above north of 100 acres, 80 acres, because of price, that might be difficult to get someone willing to get an offer to accept an offer like is about 50%. Normally,
Right,
the more the properties are expensive and the
right,
more the owners are a little bit sophisticated. So
right.
probably another channel, another approach is needed. So let's say that my perfect window is between 5 and 80 acres, anything in the middle. Um, I lately I started to do a little less than 5, so let's say 3 to 5, because I realized, and actually this has been proved by the responses that I have to the mailers, that a lot of people does infill lots, like you do a lot of infill lots. A lot of people does just bigger acreage, so 5 plus. But I think there is a gap that is 3 to 5 that not a lot of people does, you
Right,
know. So
right,
I think that there is a lot of people that in this interval acreage, owners of land in this interval acreage, that do not receive a lot of offers.
right.
So I decided to lower a little bit the minimum limit, and so now I'm doing 3 to 80 or 100 acres. That is the window that I use.
Excellent. That's amazing. So you determine what to buy based upon the profit margin, the purchase price, and your ability
Yes.
to pick it up for about 50% of
Yes.
market value.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Amazing. Amazing.
I
Let me
mean,
ask,
if it is like a double close is I can go up to the 70, 75. If it is something that I can see as an entitlement project or minor subdivision project, I can also offer like full market value and
right.
force the appreciation afterward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's key. You know, a lot of people starting out don't understand the different ways they can make money from a particular land parcel. A lot of people that I know that started using a course similar to Seth's course, which is great. I've read some of the articles in there and watched a few videos as well myself. I've been following him too, great guy. Hopefully I can get him to come and talk to me someday as well. But when people get started from a traditional course which says evaluate land, find out what it's worth, make an offer at a percentage of it, and buy it and resell it. That's the basic formula for anyone starting out. That was the formula for me on my very first deal and my only deal. I never touched that formula again because I found a different way to do this. But if that's the way, most people get lost in or so deeply focused on that being the only way to do this. But if you figure out how to double close, how to
Yeah.
wholesale, how to
Oh yeah.
make commissions from retail sales, force appreciation, or sell it to a developer that's going to force appreciation on your behalf and maybe pay you a
I
percentage,
agree.
charge people some consulting fee, and you all you do is connect people, connect a seller to a buyer and charge. There's just so many different ways of making money. Once your brain opens up to these different possibilities, then you start realizing, hey, there's the gap here. Hey, I don't buy this for
Yes.
50%, but I can still make money on this even at 70% or 75%.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? Also, this is actually this give me an access is when we talk about competition, it depends on how you, where people sees competition. Actually, I see possible collaborations.
Right.
I don't know if me and you will ever collaborate or have a joint venture partner, but as you were saying, what you do, you are an investor, I'm a land investor, but we do two different things, two completely different things. And there is potential to work together at some point. And this happened with other people, other that I joint venture with, I partner with, I had companies with, because they were like, hey, I am an expert in infill lots, or I am an expert in seller financing. I never did any seller financing, for example,
Right.
but never did. And so let's work together and see if we can take something out of it.
Right.
It's instead of being like, oh, the competition, I have to keep my secrets, I don't have to pass it. I think this is BS.
You're absolutely right. You can show 10 people exactly what you do, and one might actually implement it. And they may
Yeah.
not be able to implement it to the extent that you are, because there's more than
Yeah.
knowledge as a factor in what it takes to succeed. Your reasons for doing this, your effort, hard work, grit, and just the ability to push harder than other people is a big factor. We didn't have a great year in 2023. We had a terrible year in 2023. We came back in 2024, and now we're set up to be even better in 2025. But a lot of people gave up. I know some investors that went back to the W-2 route, and that's totally okay. They have to feed their families and support their
Yeah, of
families.
course.
But yeah, not everybody can do uh, what one person's doing.
Yeah.
That's why when people come to us, and they say, "Can you show me what you do so I can replicate what you do?" I say, "Listen, I can show you what I do, but you being able to replicate what I do, that's a different story. That's
Yeah,
not
I agree.
100% guaranteed."
I agree.
I'm going to ask you this. What are some of your favorite tools or platforms for researching properties?
So for researching properties, you mean to pull the lists or due diligence or?
Let's talk about both. Let's start with, where do you get your data?
Okay. Up until still now, actually, I have a subscription with Land Vision, which has worked pretty well. Now I had the opportunity to buy because I was one of the first buying it, to buy a. I talked to you of Land Insights first, and also I don't have any affiliation with Land Insights. I just think that it's a good tool, a very good tool. And Land Insights before was just a market analysis, market research tool, very well done, growing. It's now I would say it's more than mature as a market research tool. Since November, it added a data platform. So they are pulling the data from First American, so essentially
Right.
data tree.
Same thing
And it's not cheap, but they are doing pretty remarkable things. And all the things that, and probably even more than the land portal in terms of the filters that you can apply and the things. They are very receptive also on the feedbacks from the users.
Right.
And so Land Insights is, at the moment, I'm not still using it because I want to make sure that is, fully operational and with all the things that I look for it. But I follow it, and probably I will start to use from February.
Got it.
So I already have the software. I still use Land Vision. This is to download the list.
Perfect.
For due diligence purposes, Land Insights also has essentially all the functionalities of Land ID or MapRight,
Right.
Land ID. I still use the Land ID, but it's just because I used to it, and I know where to go.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's easy, and
Great.
I like Land ID a lot. And for due diligence purposes, that's pretty much it. It's not that of course, I call the county, and I try to get the confirmation of a few information on about setbacks and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But for what concern access, topo, wetlands, flood zone, I rely on Land ID, and that's pretty much it.
Amazing. Such a well-made platform, so inexpensive to use, and you can do so much with Land ID. Again, I'm not affiliated with them, but I use it myself. I also use Regrid, which is very, very, very similar.
I use Regrid too. When I don't find the parcels on Land ID, normally they are on, and Regrid is what is $10 per month.
Thing. Yeah, Land ID has a basic subscription for $10 a month now too. So you don't necessarily have to buy the full
I
featured
didn't know
version.
that.
Yeah, they have a
Oh,
very it's essentially launched as a competitor to Regrid, and it does identical things as Regrid. So if you have Regrid, you don't have to get Land ID. But if you're getting Land ID and you're getting the pro subscription, you don't need Regrid pretty much, unless it's not able to find a
yeah,
parcel. Awesome. So what are some of the biggest red flags that make you walk away from a deal?
the biggest one is access. So I want the land to be not that locked, and doesn't mean that I know people that has created a business on landlocked properties. You know,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
another example. For
Yeah.
example, this is a and I'm happy with them. It's just something that I don't want to go through it, even if there is like in Alabama or I think also in Tennessee, there is this thing that you know you can have you are going to have by law an easement.
Access.
I don't want to go through the process,
Mhm.
um, and um, and I know that I may lose some opportunities that are on the table. I'm sure that Logan Fulmer he would go all the time
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
kind of properties,
That's all he
but
does.
I try to keep it as easy as possible. A deeded easement might be okay. I want to make sure that there is physical access, and here comes into play again the role of the land agent going there, or you know the drone pilot going there and say, "Hey, I couldn't go to the property." It happened to me actually, a property in North Carolina,
Mhm.
beautiful property on the paper, you know, look like a crazy good profit. And then the agent went there, and after that we bought, and that was a mistake.
Mhm.
Went there and said, I don't know how to get to the property. This all wooded. So we had essentially to clean it up, spend a bunch of money, still profitable. It's very, very difficult to lose money into this business if you buy sufficiently low, but not as good as I was expecting. So
Understand. Yeah.
access is the main thing. And then depending on the property, topography also.
Sure.
If it is a big property for recreational purposes, like you have 20, 40 acres, not a big deal if it's steep. You know, they use for hunting, they use for hiking, and it's a fun property. But if it is like 2 acres, 3 acres, 5 acres, and it's steep on a cliff, there is not too much of a use that you can do of the property. Now, do I
Right.
buy that property? If it has like a good frontage and is not super, super steep, probably I may decide to make a very lowball offer that
Right.
8 times
Right.
out of 10 is not accepted. But generally, I try to stay away from this kind of properties.
Understood.
I'm not important for me if there are utilities or not. No,
Okay.
not a big deal. Wetlands and flood zone, it depends on the market. The markets where I work, I try to stay away from properties that have more than 50% in wetlands and flood zone.
Mhm.
But you know, if you work in Florida,
Mhm.
every property in Florida is in flood
Right.
zone, so
Houston is
that is normal.
entirely in
But
a
if you
flood
work
zone.
like in Texas, probably flood zone has a major impact.
It depends.
So
It depends. In Houston,
this is
90% of the properties in the Houston city or 70% of the properties are in flood zone. Some of the neighborhoods that we make the most amount of money on, the luxury areas, are all in a flood zone. So people know they're buying in a flood zone. They'll have to pay more money for insurance. And now there's more new restrictions that when you build on those properties, you have to have your home elevated to a certain height so that you can bypass that
yeah,
level of risk,
yeah.
but people buy
You
them and pay a lot of money.
exactly, and this is also local knowledge. For example, I found out that in Pennsylvania there are some areas where there are some hunters communities
Mhm.
that are desperately looking for properties in wetlands because
Right.
they do a duck hunt there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and this what was said to me, was reported to me by a land agent from Whitetail. Said, hey, if you go for properties in wetlands in this area, because I have the buyers ready. So this is just an example.
Wow, very cool. Yes, even though you're doing land business in so many different counties, cities, you put in the work, the research required to know the nuances about the local areas in general, the regulations, what's in demand. And that's what beginners don't understand is that land parcel in Arkansas, an acre there may not be the same thing as an acre in Texas because
Okay.
of local regulations, preferences, best use case for that property. I would have passed on a property if I saw it was in a wetland. But you knowing that there's local hunters looking for land there might make money on the property that I would have just
Yeah.
overlooked. So
Yeah. Exactly.
awesome. Well, I'm gonna now ask you about some of your operation, your team,
Yep.
your
Sure.
management. So first, what does your team look like? You mentioned you're no longer the only person in this business. What does
That's
your
right.
team look like?
Okay. So my team, I have three departments. I have like a flow chart, and my department is acquisition, transaction, disposition.
Mhm.
Transaction and disposition at the moment is still nobody, still me. For the acquisition, which I said is the most critical cog of all the engine of my company, at the moment I have one VA from Egypt, Marwan, that is the guy that I do market selection at the moment still using land insights, and then I pass him the counties where he needs to pull the data, and he pulls the data, download the list, scrub the list, and then price the list. I always ask him to provide me the Loom video of how we priced the list. So I price the list myself, and that. So at this stage is still actually twice the work that I was doing before,
Sure.
because I want to make sure that he's working pretty well. So he's almost there, but I want to make sure that it gets as close as possible to my way of pricing the list. And so Marwan is one, I call it the lead generation manager. Then there is another branch into the acquisition department that is my intake manager or onboard specialist, the lead manager, Colin has one. She is Nika. She's from the Philippines. She's the entry point. In my letters, there is her phone number. So she takes all the calls from the people who doesn't send the purchase agreement or send the purchase agreement, but needs to talk. They call her. She goes through she kind of pre-qualify the property. So she goes on land ID, check for flood, topo, access, and wetlands, and then ask the standard questions. And then she set an appointment on a calendar. At the moment, until today, was for me to go and renegotiate it if necessary, or just to show the next steps to the seller. And I am now in the process to hire an acquisition manager. I have two candidates. I had the last interview with one of them today, which made a very, very good impression. And I have another guy that I'm talking to, and by the 10th, I will have decided who the acquisition manager will be. He's a US-based guy, in any case, full-time, that will, with good closing skills and customer relation experience, and possibly has done the job. And both of them, they have already worked in sales with other land investors. And so they will be three, starting from the acquisition manager will be full operational starting from the 3rd of February. So starting from the 3rd of February, there will be 3 plus me at the moment.
Amazing.
So this is us.
This is pretty cool. So you're running a very lean operation. It's pretty much it's right now the data initial analysis is outsourced to a VA from Egypt. Your inbound calls and then analyzing the initial diligence of the property is outsourced to a VA from the Philippines. And then you're going to have a local US-based person doing on the properties that do hit that initial qualification. They're going to come in, do the deeper diligence, and then perhaps do negotiating on your behalf and get the contract signed?
Yes, this is the goal. A contract sign. Actually, I told the guys that I would like them not only the contract signing is the main goal, but I would like them to follow both the seller and to get updates from the title company up until the closing on the acquisition side. So that is
So that's a part of the initial transaction coordination is going to be handled by them as well.
Because I don't have a transaction coordinator, so they will cover temporarily this.
Art, you're gonna fire yourself, man. With all these people doing every piece of the business, what are you gonna do?
Well, I was so much in. I think that a company owner, uh, at least at the very beginning, yes, you need to, get into the operations and to understand what are the difficulties, what are the struggles, what is easy. But once that you know that, as soon as possible, you have to outsource to be able to see the big picture. Because if you are into the business, you don't know where you're going. You're just this, and you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And instead, you have to fly high and see, this is where I want to be in 2 years.
Amazing.
And then reverse engineer. To do that, I need to have these people in this position with these skills. I need to close these deals. So what I do essentially is I think more strategically. The goal is that to be able that I can bring the company to where I want it to be in 1, 2, 5 years.
This is the best advice I've heard. People do not realize this until they have spent many, many, many years of not just grinding in the business, but going through stress, going through ups and downs, and barely maintaining the level that they've reached.
Yes.
In order for you to grow, or anybody in general to grow in the business, you have to take yourself out from inside the business.
Okay.
And make systems and SOPs around who's doing what. And sounds like you're doing a very good job of being able to delegate to people that are not even local to your country, don't speak, your first language, and you're able to get them to find you the properties, get your data ready. Who handles your mailers?
Well, the mailers, once that the list has been downloaded, is sent to Rocket Print Mail, and they send out mailers.
Understood.
So I have a mail house doing the job.
This has been super insightful. It sounds like a very efficient operation, Art. Congratulations on being able to build something so efficient, successful. I know it's not without its own challenges. I'm sure you're constantly fighting fires, because we all are.
Yeah.
Tell me about what are some immediate challenges in your business that you're looking to fix?
One is the thing that I'm working now with my acquisition manager. Essentially, I was a little bit the bottleneck of the flow, essentially, because having a day job, I come home at 5:30 in the afternoon, and then I have a limited amount of time to do like the acquisition manager, transaction manager, disposition manager, plus to check the markets, plus to think as strategically as possible. So if I having like a person like acquisition manager taking care of that would allow me to take all the acquisition department that, just remember, is the most important thing, and that I work a lot on that side, and so have someone else, so 3 persons essentially, working on that side. Of course, it's a big leap of faith. So it's not just difficult, it's also the mentality you have. I am not a freak control, but I like to be in control. So sometimes I risk to still now to micromanage, and I have to, okay, don't tell anything, let's see how it works, and then increase you. But so that was me being the bottleneck, was one of the major thing. And that is pretty much the biggest struggle that I had, but also not one, but by outsourcing, I am almost there. I would say that I am there. It was the time that I was spending, but this is always into the bottlenecking. The time that I was spending just downloading e-lists, scrubbing lists, pricing lists. This is not something that a CEO or a company
should be doing. Yeah, absolutely. Outsource it, create a step-by-step standard operating procedure around it, and hand it to somebody.
And I have like a book that I suggest. I like to read book about business and personal developments. Is Buy Back Your Time.
Dan Martell.
I mean, yes. I mean, I suggest read that book. It would really open my mind. It's really well written.
I too made some changes in my own business after reading that book. I
Yeah.
hired a personal assistant to handle.
I'm still not there. I cannot. I am afraid of that too much. Yeah, still.
You
But
know,
yeah,
I
I
was
will.
like that. Art, I was like that. Logan Fulmer, you mentioned Logan earlier. I had a conversation with him,
Yeah.
and he said that is the best investment you're going to make
Yeah, I'm
because
sure
it
about
is
that.
not cheap.
100%.
It's definitely not cheap. You know, it comes. I mean, and we make sure all of the people in our company get paid well because we want to rely on them. If they're happy, our business does well, right?
Of course.
So, you know, the assistant we have, it's paid more than some of the business graduates, college graduates get paid in their job after a 4-year degree. Because I'm about to write a W-2 here soon, but they handle the business. They do the transaction coordination as well, and they get
Cool.
additional bonuses for transaction coordination on top. They get a base salary, which they handle all the administrative day-to-day stuff, scheduling, mail, phone calls, calling sellers to coordinate closings, signings, filing away documents, filing reports, making sure I'm not missing, paying my bills, picking
Yeah,
up
that is
supplies
also
for the office, little things that add up to so much of your time.
awesome.
So,
Yeah, that is actually the next role, probably before the transaction coordinator and the disposition. Also, because I said to you, using a title company and the land agent, and pretty much covered there, pretty much.
mhm, mhm.
But to have someone like jumping into my calendar, jumping into my email, and free me from like I was like, before we started this podcast, I was checking my email. I didn't check like a couple of hours. I think that I received 20 emails in a couple of hours. It's
And my
crazy.
email is organized according to Dan's book now.
Yeah.
It has those subfolders. My email is delegated to the assistant, and she goes in.
Awesome.
She'll review every email and put them in the right
Yeah.
folders for me to go in.
What I like of that book, for those that who didn't read, and is that there are a lot of actionable lessons, things
Yes.
that as you were saying, you were mentioning, he tells you how to organize your
Yes.
email. So I like that book. I would say that is one of my top 3 today.
Yes, 100% same. I would agree. So we're going to be wrapping this up here. I have 4 questions for you, and then I would want you to give you an opportunity to just give us some advice, some suggestions. But before that, let me ask you, what has been one habit or mindset that has contributed to your success?
Well,
I mean, I know the answer. I want you to say it. I already know you.
yeah. It's, for me, it's been the understanding of the importance of time. More than the importance of time is the importance of focusing. So being able to, let me say the right word in English, compartmentalize, right?
Compartmentalize.
So things. So when
Yes.
I work, I just work. I don't have distraction. I put my phone somewhere else. I have my digital timer, that thing in front of me. I have to work 2 hours. It doesn't matter. If someone calls me, they don't find me because my phone is off.
Right.
And so that is, there are, now I'm reading another book that is 10x is better than 2x.
Mhm.
And they say that the distinction between the time in the concept of Newton and time in the concept of Einstein. So essentially, time, Newton said, is linear. We all have the 24 hours. While Einstein said, well, yes, but no, because it's like to have a basket. We all have the same basket, but you can put into the basket one thing and then cross your arms and do nothing and watch Netflix or lose time on Facebook, or you can fill the basket with all the things up until the top. So it's not really, yeah, we all have the same basket, but it depends on how we feel. So for me, time, the understanding of the importance of time and being focused is very important. And this is true also, even if I'm not too good in that, the opposite. So when fun time, family time must be family time. Fun time must be fun time. I still have to work there because, many times, even if it's fun time, for example, I was in recently, I was on holidays abroad, and you always think, the deal that needs to close, I need to call the title company. Probably, did he do what I set him to do and refer to the virtual assistant. So that the opposite is I still have to work, but when I work, I am 100% work. I don't get any distraction. This is the most important thing.
That's amazing.
So you stay
Great
here.
use. Best
This
use of
is
your
the
time.
digital time, man.
I might
Digital
have to
time.
order that. I might have to order one of those.
Amazon. I arrived today, but I
Yes,
had another before.
that's amazing. I love that. What advice would you give to someone that wants to start investing in land?
I would say to not be to start small, grow fast, which means like a mistake that I made, so that if I had to start back, if I could go back in time and start again, a mistake that I made that I suggest people who wants to start to not do it is to do not follow the shiny object. You know, when you start, there is a lot of people into our space, which is, in any case, it's an amazing community. The land community is quite amazing. People is willing to help. We are always, generally, most of us is open to share, is open to discuss, and you know, this kind of stuff. But there are also a lot of people who does it with the purpose of selling you something. So, you know, it's easy. And I fell into it. You know, you start and say, okay, I send out 1,000 mailers per month. Now, probably in today's market, 1,000 is not a lot, depending also if you work on, you know, infill lots or not. But let's say I want to send out 2,000 letters per month. And then you see that someone is trying to sell you the texting thing or the cold calling thing or whatever. And so you start to do the cold calling and you start to do the texting. And so you started to bounce from, you know, one place and the other. And in fact, you are not moving anywhere because you are there and you just, and this is something that, you know, it's everyone doing business thinks this thing. And also Alex Hormozy is a big promoter of this. Just become very good at doing the boring thing, do it for an extended period of time, aim to be the best in that, and then you start to do something else. Instead of just starting, you do 2 months mailers, doesn't work. Let me try texting, couple of months, no, it doesn't work, and you don't do anything. And 6 months have gone, and you've just spent a lot of money. So the first thing is do not get distracted by shiny object, which is super easy in our space. And another one is to have a reserve of money available. So do not, the biggest expense of my, you know, my income when it comes, I have an automated rule, I use Mercury, that send most of it into marketing, another one into team, and another piece into my, what I call acquisition budget, but is essentially a reserve that I have. Because if there is a good opportunity that I want to buy myself, I must be able to buy myself. But that is also if there is some, for some reason, you know, 2, 3, 4 months, I cannot get anything sold, I still have that money that is not going anywhere.
Right.
And another
Right.
thing that I suggest is always, I have an account into, not because I'm good, but it's just because I believe in karma. I have an account, and a little percent of my income goes into the account that is just, you know, to do good things around.
It's
So
awesome. It's
you
amazing.
can
Like
donate
charity.
to whoever you want. Yeah, a charity. Normally it's not at every profit, but I try to arrive like 10,000, and when I have 10,000, I send it to one or two, you know, charity causes that I like.
That
Actually.
is
And actually, this
amazing.
is also part of my marketing. In my marketing, for each property that I close at closing, I pay $200 to a charity cause, whatever wants the seller me to send the money on their behalf. This is
That
amazing.
is amazing. I think that's going to be a personal takeaway for me to
Yeah.
start setting some money aside to just help somebody, to help people that are
Yeah, I mean,
in
it's,
need.
you know, I believe in karma.
That's amazing, man. I love that. And the last question I have for you is if you could start over. I know it took you 3 years to get here. You've been doing well for a while. I'm sure there were some ups and downs, some challenges, some moments where you probably thought you questioned what you were doing, right? Because we've all been through that same thing. What would you do differently if you could start over knowing what you know now?
I would probably start to, as I said before, one mistake that I made and I wouldn't make if I had to start over is to be focused on one thing. Okay, so start with one thing, and then when it becomes good, you start to see entitlements, subdivisions, the texting, and other things that are not. But just to start with flipping mailers, flipping text, they all work. You just need to stick to it.
Yeah.
So this is one thing. And another thing is to start to use the look for bigger deals as soon as possible.
Right.
I started that I was in Arizona buying very cheap lots that were giving me like 400% return on investment, but I was buying for 500 and selling for 2,000. So it's better to have like, a 60% return on investment on a property that you buy for 100,000 and sell for 160. So it's not about return on investment. It's about the profit that you make, and you make the profit buying low, of course, but just at the right price point. If you don't
100%.
go for cheaper property at the beginning, is normal. It's okay.
Practice.
Risk adverse, but as soon as you can, just move towards bigger property because it's easier. They allow you to use agents. They allow you to use title companies because numbers allow you to do that. With cheap properties, you have to set close on them, taking the risk of mess up with the title search. You take responsibilities, liabilities. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have an agent. You have to do all the work yourself. It's way more complicated for a way lower profit. So it doesn't make any
Absolutely.
sense.
You said you would rather take 60% profit over 400% profit and make more money. I have taken 10% profit and
Yeah,
made a lot of
exactly.
money selling a $500,000
Who
piece of
cares of the
land,
percent?
made 50,000. It's just 10%, but it's
Yeah,
not a bad payday, you know?
yeah, I agree.
Um, you shared some numbers. Is
Uh,
that
the,
okay?
the one the one of the entitlement,
Yes.
the buy for 945 and the sell for 1577. Of
1.577.
course,
So
it will be
almost,
not all profit because there are investors
sure.
involved and the entitlement. The entitlement cost us about 130. And another thing is we are considering, we bought it with seller financing.
Mhm.
We should close soon for sure before the end of March, probably before the end of January. But if we don't close before the end of January for any reason, then we will look for some investors willing to buy the property. And we have already the buyer and signed purchase agreement with the buyers. So it would be like a no-brainer for me. But
Yeah.
we would like to have more control on the property at that point after January. So this is
Just so you can continue making the seller finance payments.
yeah, I will. I mean, and we will continue. We have until the end of March, and we should close at the end of January.
Got
So
it.
we are confident that we will. But if for some reason, like the buyer that wants another document from the county, because the buyer is Maronda, and we have this purchase agreement signed. We are just waiting for the notice of closing, and he's being demanding with he wants documents. So if we don't close by January, then we will have other 2 months to close because after we have a seller financing 3 months, and after we have the balloon with the seller, right? So if we don't close within January, then we will have other 2 months, and we at that point we would like to buy the property ourselves
Outright.
or with an
Yes.
investor so that we can become independent from the seller and just own the property. And at that point, it's not important if we go even after the 30th of March because we have money. I mean, we have the property essentially.
Makes sense. Makes sense. This is the growth from the deal size perspective has been amazing. But I can tell you from personal experience, the amount of personal growth it takes to be able to even look at deals that big. to be able to
Yeah,
comprehend and have the
I
level
mean,
of confidence that you can do a deal that size. There's always a level of safety and comfort in small numbers because the risk is smaller. And when your numbers are seven figures,
I
you're,
feel the stress. I tell you.
yes,
I mean, I when everything is fine, we are happy where we are. We are going to close. But when there are these big numbers, is what the this is big, man.
yes, yes, yes.
So
This is
for me, at
absolutely
least,
insane.
there is people who says they are pennies. For me, they are not. So
Art, I will share with you, there was a property that we got an opportunity to buy for 600,000 one time. And we were going to wholesale it. We were going to wholesale it. So the risk wasn't that big. However, the seller wanted, I believe he wanted $60,000 as earnest money. And
wow,
we, that was insane. We knew the property was worth a lot. We thought the property was worth about 800 or 900,000. This was
was
in
it
Arizona,
refundable or not refundable, EMD?
non-refundable earnest money. Well, they would have given us a 30-day window with a perhaps a $2,000 or $3,000 option fee, but they wanted 60,000 that would become non-refundable in a month.
Wow.
So we decided not to do the deal, even though the property was worth about 900,000. We were getting the opportunity to buy it for 600, and we could have potentially sold it to a builder pretty easily at 700, at 800, 750.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do the deal, and it took me about 6 months to get confident enough to say, I can do that deal. I've done many $100,000 land parcel deals, $200,000 land parcel deals, not profit, but what the parcel was worth. So how different can a $600,000 parcel be? Went back to the seller. I told the seller flat out, I don't have 60,000 to put down, but I can bring a builder that can pay for your property pretty quickly, and we'll just charge the builder our commissions. He said, well, since you don't have the 60,000 to put down, how about I tack that on to my price? So the property now became 660,000 asking price with
Oh,
just a
nice.
$6,000 earnest money. And I said, okay, I can do that. We ended up selling that property for 800,000, Art, and
Awesome.
it made, 140K minus some expenses on closing.
After how much? After how long you sold property?
2 months.
Okay. That is
Two
the
months.
type of deal that I dream of.
Yeah,
This
2 months.
entitlement is good on paper, but first of all, I mean, we can discuss another time. It would take a lot of time, but there were a lot of things that should have done better. I know what didn't work. I took notes of didn't work. Meanwhile, that I realized it, and so the next entitlement that I will do, I don't think that is going to be my favorite strategy entitlements because there is a very capital intensive, a lot of risks that you cannot factor, you don't even imagine that can happen, and there are a lot of things that are out of your control in an entitlement. So as I said, I like to be in control as much as possible, at least. Right. But for sure the profit is there. It's just that is
Time
so
consuming
much stress. It's
and
work,
stress.
stress is and I'm not. I mean, flips or minor subdivide, they are easier.
Way
They're
easier.
simpler. That can always be the thing that comes out, but I like to make my life as easy as possible. I don't need
Right.
to make like hundreds of millions or half a million to hundreds of thousands or half a million profit every time. I can be happy also with some like 200,000, 100,000, 50,000. I'm happy with that as long as I
And
make it
stressful.
simple. Yeah,
And it's simple.
less stressful as possible.
You're doing very, very well. I got a good look at your operation, and it's very lean. It looks like you're very hyper focused. You understand your
Yeah,
niche very well. You understand
I
your
need to.
criteria very well. You've built the right systems. I don't know if they're very advanced systems or very basic systems, but they're working for you.
It can be better, but I know it and I'm working on it in terms of procedures. I try to do like still the buy back your time. It explains to you how to do the SOP, right? With the
Yeah.
video and to explain things. And this is what I'm trying to implement. It's not always easy. Sometimes I forget to record myself doing things, but I'm working. I'm happy where I am today.
Yes.
It's not only from a financial standpoint, and it's and this is also from Dan Sullivan. 10x is better than 2x. It depends on if you live in the gap or in the game. So to live in the gap, it means you compare yourself to what you were before. So, and see how you have improved.
Mm-hmm.
To live in this is to live in the game. To live in the gap is, I would have liked to be there and I'm not there yet. So
Right.
you feel frustrated.
Right.
So
Right.
I try to live in the game. And
Right.
compared to where I was when I started, for me, it was unbelievable. And I'm not talking about financial results. Because that can be the year that goes well, the year that doesn't go well. So what I did in 2024 might be not the same in 2025. It's just about the things that I do. I mean, the things that I talk about a deal that I'm buying for 995 and selling for 1.6. I wouldn't even thought the possibility to talk about it 3 years ago. It's out
amazing.
of
The
out
growth
of any.
is
I mean, it's incredible.
unfathomable.
So I'm happy to be where I am today. And again, independently from the financial results, the things that I have achieved in terms of personal growth, professional growth are incredible. So yeah, and this is
This
also
is
thanks to
huge.
you and to all the people in the space.
This has been amazing, man. So how can people get a hold of you? When are you available? When can they come and meet with you? Tell us a little bit about you. This is your time.
Okay, so people can find me on Facebook, Arturo Paturzo. Probably is the easiest way. Otherwise, shoot an email to me, art@diendei.com, as it's written here. I think
Yep, I'm
you
gonna
can
put a
see
link. I'm
yeah,
gonna
exactly.
if you allow, I
Yeah,
can share your contact
yeah,
information.
sure. And I will be in the US, in Florida, for Easter, in Minneapolis in August, and I'm planning to come and visiting you and hopefully also Alicia in between like probably in August, but between Easter and August. So I will be in
I'm looking
Texas
forward to
also,
that. I'm gonna have a
and
gala here. We're
would
gonna
love
have a party. We're gonna have a party.
I would
All right.
love it.
This has been amazing, man. I appreciate all the time. I know it's late. What time is it over there right now?
Here now it's 7 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening.
In PM, 7 p.m.
Yeah, 7
Yeah,
p.m.
it's noon here. So I appreciate you being up
No
so
problem.
early, ready to go and sharing so much with us. I wouldn't have even been able to get out of bed that early, but you gave us so much amazing info. I'm gonna have a script along with this, and your email address is going to be available. And if anyone has any additional follow-up questions or they want to connect with you, I don't know if you offer any consultations or mentorships, but if you do, I'd be happy to pass that information along to people. But thanks for sharing, man. This has been amazing.
No, thanks to you for having me, and I'm always happy to talk to people about the land and make new friends in the space. So whoever wants to talk to me and discuss the land or whatever, I'm always available.